in the heart of the desolate Arctic wilderness, where the unforgiving cold bites at your very soul, a chilling incident unfolded. It was a night bathed in shadows, where darkness cloaked the unsuspecting victims, sleeping together in their flimsy tents. Little did they know that lurking just beyond the veil of darkness was a primal force, a creature born of ice, blood, and hunger. The icy winds whispered warnings, but the travelers were oblivious to the impending doom that inched closer to them through the frozen tundra. An apex predator appeared from the freezing night air, its massive frame casting a haunting silhouette against the pale moonlight. The sleeping tourists were oblivious to the gruesome horror that was about to unfold. Blood soon stained the pristine snow, a grim testament to the cruel dance of survival. Amidst the darkness, tragedy struck, forever etching the Svalbard polar bear attack of 2011 into the annals of Arctic horror. Hold on to your seats. This is going to get brutal. Visitors to Svalbard, the Norwegian archipelago within the Arctic Circle, are informed explicitly upon arrival. If you travel outside of Longyearbyenn's city centre, you must have a loaded rifle and a person who knows how to use it. Svalbard, a cluster of islands halfway between Norway and the North Pole, is a desolate land of ice and arid rock. There are slightly more than 2,500 residents, the vast majority of whom live in the administrative capital of Longyearbyen. As many as 3,000 of the world's largest terrestrial superpredators, the polar bear, live alongside them and sometimes eat them. Bear alarms, flare mines, and high-powered rifles are essential for self-defense for anyone venturing into the Svalbard wilderness. The British Schools Exploring Society organised for a group of 80 adolescents and adult aides to spend over a month exploring the Svalbard archipelago, beginning on July 23, 2011. The British Exploring Society is a youth development charity based in the Royal Geographical Society building in London, United Kingdom. Its mission is to provide young people with an intensive and memorable experience of self-discovery in wilderness environments. From the Arctic to the Amazon rainforest, the British Exploring Society has offered 16 to 25-year-olds from diverse schools, universities, and other backgrounds the chance to take part in valuable adventure and environmental research projects in challenging regions of the world. All of the expeditions, led by unpaid professionals from the outdoors youth work and teaching services, look to aid in the development of young people by presenting them with the challenge of living and working in remote and challenging environments. Horatio Chappell, 17, a pupil at the prestigious Eton College and aspirant physicist, was among them. Midway through their month-long trip to this unforgiving habitat, Chappell, 10 other students, and 2 instructors hiked to the Von Post Glacier. The party camped overnight on a snow bridge near the glacier, where polar bear sightings were common. There were reports of one of the students seeing multiple polar bear tracks on this hike. In the early hours of August 5th, a large but malnourished male polar bear approached the camp. A series of tripwires were intended to activate alarms, and the flare mines did not activate. The most plausible explanation is that the bear pushed over a support post, dislodging the cartridge that would have triggered the explosives. What would happen next could only be described as absolute chaos and bloody mayhem. Chappell, Scott Bennell-Smith, and Patrick Flinders were asleep in a tent on the edge of the encampment when Flinders heard a scratching sound outside his tent before it suddenly collapsed. The fabric of the tent hit my face. I pulled my sleeping bag over my head, crumpled into a ball, and shut my eyes. I was screaming, "I don't want to be here anymore." I saw the bear dragging one of the leaders along by his head in the middle of the circle of 6 tents. I wanted to hide, but there was nowhere to go. Then the bear came towards us. What happened after this can only be explained as a classic polar bear attack: brutal, relentless, and unforgiving. Chapel would be the first to be attacked in the tent. With one swat from a massive paw armed with razor-sharp claws, Chapel was immobilized immediately. The attack on Chapel didn't stop there. The polar bear mauled him around the head, face, and neck, sending copious blood splatter flying across the collapsed tent. Next, the bear turned its attention to the terrified Flinders. I looked up and saw its huge mouth snapping. All around its nose was blood. At that moment, I thought I might die. It hit me with its paw, and my arm came out of my sleeping bag. Then I felt its teeth around my elbow, biting down on the bone. Suddenly, it had my head in its jaws. I could feel it crunching my skull. I could hear it crack. I heard a growl which was deafening because it was so close up. I lashed out and waved my arm up to punch the bear in the head again and again to get it off me. This was when Benel Smith made the worst mistake a person can make. He ran. Scott must have run because it suddenly dropped me and ran after him, Flinders said. On the other side of the encampment, shouts and screams of sheer terror awoke instructor Michael Reed, who had the only rifle in the group, a Mauser 98K from World War II. Later, he described carefully aiming at the bear to avoid striking any of the young explorers, only to have his weapon misfire. The rifle continued to malfunction, despite multiple attempts to chamber a round. While struggling with the rifle, he yelled for the other group members to discharge pen flares to frighten away the enormous predator. The bear then turned its attention to Reed, swatting him to the ground before savagely biting him on the head. He unsuccessfully tried to gouge the bear's eyes, but only was saved when Group Commander Andrew Ruck began hurling rocks at the animal. The bear then went after Ruck, severely mauling him. Reed, badly injured and bleeding profusely, somehow managed to load the rifle, take aim, and successfully shoot the rampaging bear, killing it. Humans have been captivated by polar bears since the beginning of recorded history. Ancient Roman texts from 57 CE describe flooded amphitheaters where polar bears and seals were stacked against one another. The fascination with polar bears has endured for centuries, beginning with the kings of ancient Egypt and early Norway, who were the first to keep them as pets. Across the globe, polar bears are used in advertising campaigns to sell everything from bottled water to your favorite sodas. Polar bears are symbols of purity and strength due to their dazzling whiteness, ferocity, and immense size. Males can reach a maximum height of 10 feet and a maximum weight of 1,500 pounds. A single bear can take on a 2,500-pound walrus and hold onto it with its massive claws measuring 2 inches long. In the winter, they travel hundreds of miles across ice expanses in pursuit of their prey. Polar bears are the pinnacle of the food chain in the Arctic, and not just because of their size. They are so well adapted to their environment that their body temperature does not change at an incomprehensible -34 degrees Fahrenheit. However, these extraordinary survival mechanisms that allow them to flourish in frigid waters could be their undoing. As a result of global warming, winters are becoming warmer, and polar bears are vanishing. Some scientists predict that 30% of polar bears will be extinct by 2050 if climate trends persist. Both males and females hunt, and their preferred prey is a seal, particularly a ringed or bearded seal. The largest bears can consume 100 pounds of fat in a single meal. Polar bears favor seals, but they are opportunists, like other bears, but are the only strictly carnivorous bear species. They will consume anything, including beluga whales, walruses, and occasionally humans. And polar bears can detect the scent of their meal up to half a mile away. Modern zoos keep polar bears, often trying to replicate their natural habitats as closely as possible. A zoo is the only location where humans can safely approach polar bears, and then only behind bars or inches of thick glass. During the milder months, polar bears are often compelled to migrate onto land due to the disappearance of sea ice. More polar bears on land, searching for food in areas devoid of their natural prey, means more interactions with humans and increased attacks. Polar bears rarely seek out confrontations, but if they are starving or feel threatened, they will kill and devour a human without hesitation, usually while still alive. However, attacks are extremely uncommon and are always carried out by a bear that is either hungry or provoked. From 1870 to 2014, only 73 attacks by non-captive polar bears were documented throughout the animal's range, including Canada, the United States, Russia, Norway, and Greenland. 20 of these attacks proved fatal, including Chappell's. The inquest into Chappell's death revealed that the group's decision to use tripwire mines instead of a nocturnal watch or security dogs resulted in them being taken by surprise during the attack, as the tripwires failed to activate. Although it was decided that the attack could have been avoided if the party had stayed in cabins rather than tents, there was no legal requirement to do so at the time. The group was also found to be missing essential equipment, including a part of the tripwire alert system. But a coroner concluded that the death was not caused by the expedition company's mistakes. Chappell was killed before Reed tried to fire on the bear, but the poor quality of the rifle they carried and the instructor's lack of training in its use contributed to subsequent injuries. The investigation determined that training with the weapon was limited to 4 rounds per team member and rudimentary handling instructions. This lack of training prevented the instructors from loading the rifle when the safety was engaged, as they were unfamiliar with the safety's operation. Instead, rounds were ejected when loaded, consistent with Reed's later account of the incident. After Chappell's passing, more than £250,000 was raised to establish Horatio's Garden, an outdoor park for patients at the Duke of Cornwall Spinal Treatment Centre in Salisbury, where his father worked as a surgeon. After concluding an internship at the centre, Chappell himself had initially proposed the initiative, but would never see it come to fruition. Speaking of his friend's death, Flinders said, "Horatio had been lying on one side of me, Scott on the other. If I had slept where he was, I would be dead. I feel guilty it was him and not me." The gruesome attack and subsequent death of Chappell serves as a reminder that nature is brutal, and there is no compromise for anyone stepping into it.